I'm now going to show you how to recolor your source images in Photoshop. This is really useful when it comes to painting, especially when you're painting in a limited color palette. So I'm going to start with this beautiful image. And in Photoshop, there are lots of different ways to do the same thing. So I'll show you a few of the different ways. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Image Mode and change it to grayscale. This gets rid of the color completely. Then I'm going to go to Image Mode and change it to duotone. The duotone window pops up, and if this drop down allows you to change it from monotone to duotone to tritone or quadtone, I'm going to leave it at monotone. And I want to change it so that it's mostly my khaki greens color, which I've already got in here. So using this window, I can change it to any color I want, and then the whole thing is basically just that one color. In this instance, I like the khaki that I've got there, so I'm going to click OK. This window here allows me to add points to this duotone curve, and it changes the lights and darks. So I want to just have it more or less like that and go OK. Now, it won't let me save it as a JPEG currently because it's still a monotone. So I need to go to Image Mode and change the mode back to RGB. And then I can go File, Save a Copy. And I'm just going to note in the file name that I have changed it to a monotone. It can save it as a JPEG. And I've already got one, but I'm going to overwrite the one I've got. So that's one way of adjusting your source images to a single color, and you've got lovely tonal gradations of that color. The next image I'm going to play with is this image of the two little red pandas. Now, at this stage, I don't even know if I'm going to manage to paint these pandas adequately in my painting, but I'm going to just see what I can do anyway. So I'm going to go to Layer and New Adjustment Layer and Hue and Saturation. I'm going to check this box which says Use Previous Layer to create a clipping mask. And what that does is it's called non-destructive editing. It means that I can fiddle about with it and it doesn't affect the original image itself. From here, I go to my Properties box, which is here, and I'm going to just slide my hue slider along and see what happens to my image. And I love doing this because quite often you get really interesting results. What I'm looking for in this case is to try and get my little red pandas to be a kind of light gray. And I'm going to have a look at my saturation panel. That takes the color out, desaturates the color if you slide left. So that's quite nice. And that's much closer to what I've got in my mind in terms of color. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go to File, Save a Copy, and I will just make a note in my file that I have adjusted it and save. So that's another method you can use. This beautiful image of leaves, I'm going to see what I can do with that. Now for this one, I think it might be useful to try the channel mixer. So in my Properties panel here, if I take the reds out, as you can see, it goes much more green. I'm looking for things that are more khaki. That's nice. And just see what happens. I want to keep my overall painting quite warm. So something like that is quite nice. And the colors are closer to what I have in my mind. I'm going to try one more layer, which is Hue and Saturation, and click on the layer, gives you the correct properties. If I slide the hue, this is getting the actual leaves a little more green, which is what I'm going for. The advantage of doing it this way rather than as a monotone is that you get a lot more color subtlety remaining, and that's quite nice for when you're painting. So now I've got my adjusted images. I'll upload those to my Pinterest folder, and it just means that when I'm painting and trying to stick to my limited color palette, I'm less distracted by colors that I don't want to creep into my painting. So now we've got all our source images recolored in the color palette that we want to paint in. In the next video, before we move on to sketching, we're going to talk about composition, storytelling, and flow. I'll see you there.